Okay, 9.6, we'll do this quick short video about circumference and arc length. So we've learned before that with a figure that has straight lines, we call the distance around the outside of it the perimeter of a shape. Circumference is the exact same thing, it's just for a circle. So circumference is all the way around the outside of the circle. If I were to walk that, that would be the circumference. This is on your formula sheet, but I just want to point out to you here, there's technically two different ways of looking at circumference. We can call it pi d or 2 pi r. And we know that's because the diameter, which is d, is twice the radius. So it basically is the same thing. If you're given the diameter, you can just use the diameter. If you're given the radius, you got to times it by 2. The other thing we'll be talking about here is called arc length. We've talked about arc measure before, which is specifically like the degrees in an arc. If it's 30 degrees or a half of a circle is 180, we know that. Here it's talking about the actual length. Like if I took a measuring tape to just that little chunk of an arc, how far would that actually be in inches or centimeters or something like that? So I want to point out to you actually on your formula sheet, you can take a second to make sure you have your formula sheet out, where these formulas are at. So this is now the back side of the formula sheet we're on. You've got this whole big section here. Here it's talking about how we know what the radius is compared to the diameter. You have circumference right there. We're going to be using that. And then we have arc length. So these are the two in particular we're going to be using for today. Let's go ahead and look at example 1. Again, we're just going to crank these out kind of fast. So it says, find the circumference of a seat. It's talking about just like if this was a real life situation, a circular seat with a radius of 9 inches. So it says, find the circumference. So take a second, look at your formula sheet again. What was the formula for circumference? This is C equals 2 pi r. Now again, it could be pi times the diameter, but we also write it typically as 2 pi r. So all this is just plugging in. The radius is 9 inches. That's going to go in for r. So we have C equals, now this means 2 times pi times my radius is 9. Now when we do this in the calculator, we want to review something really quickly here. We should know what pi is. We've talked about that lots of times before. But in Canvas, they want you to use 3.14 for pi. We know that pi is actually a number that goes on and on and on and on forever, 3.14159, blah, 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 it keeps going. But when they do the math here, they want you to use 3.14. So all I'm going to do is go to my calculator and do 2 times 3.14 times 9, and that's going to be my answer. Take a second to do that. Okay, so if I'm using 3.14 exactly, you should get 56.52. Now this is inches. So this would be if I took a measuring tape to the outside of that seat, yeah, that's how many inches would go all the way around the outside of this circular seat. Okay, so number 2, so same thing, talking about the circumference. So that's how we know what formula to use. Once again, take a second, write down that formula. That is again C equals 2, I keep writing pi first, 2 pi r, 2 times pi times r. But they're telling you the circumference here. A lot of times we tend to forget that a formula has 2 sides to it. If I know the circumference, it goes where the circumference goes in the formula. So that's going to go actually on this side. So you got to keep an eye out for those questions, even though it is a very simple formula to plug into. Sometimes we can plug into r, sometimes we can plug into c. And now it says to find the radius. So I have 2 times, again, instead of pi, we're going to be using 3.14 r. So now we need to get r by itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify this. I got 52 equals, let's go to our calculator. We're going to do 2 times 3.14. Okay, so you get 6.28 here times r. And then again, we just got to get r by itself. So what should we do to get r by itself? We should divide by 6.28. That's 6.28 times r. We should divide to get to the opposite. So I got 52 divided by 6.28. We should get 8.28. And again, that's the radius there is going to be in inches. So that's the radius there of that seat from the center to the outside. Okay. So I think we'll actually pause there. I was going to have you guys do 2 more, but I just want to give a little glimpse into what we're going to be doing on Wednesday, since I won't be seeing you guys tomorrow. So once you are done with this, you are all set.